The notification pinged on my phone at exactly 2:47 a.m. I wasn't supposed to see it. That much was clear from the way Marcus's phone lay face down on his nightstand, the way he'd angled his body away from me in sleep, the way his breathing changed just slightly when the screen illuminated the darkness. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I'd been awake for hours anyway. Insomnia had become my closest companion these past 3 months, ever since that nagging feeling in my gut refused to quiet down. You know the one. That ancestral whisper that screams danger when everything on the surface looks perfectly calm. The phone buzzed again. Then again. Marcus stirred, his arm reaching out blindly. I closed my eyes, steadied my breathing, played the role of the peaceful sleeper. Through barely open lids, I watched him grab the phone, check the screen, and a slow smile spread across his face in the blue-white glow. The kind of smile that had once made my heart flutter. Now it just made my stomach turn. He slipped out of bed. Our bed. The king-sized monstrosity he'd insisted we buy last year with my credit card. And padded toward the bathroom. The door didn't quite close all the way. I could hear the soft tapping of his fingers on the screen, then his voice, barely a whisper. I told you, she's asleep. Yeah, I know. Look, she's not going anywhere. Trust me. A pause. Muffled laughter. Babe, I've got her exactly where I want her. She bought the whole ring shopping story. Ate it up like candy. My fingernails dug into my palms beneath the covers. Ring shopping. We'd spent last Saturday looking at diamonds. Or rather, I'd spent 4 hours watching him pretend to care about cuts and clarity while checking his phone every 5 minutes. I'd told myself he was just nervous about the commitment. Told myself a lot of things, apparently. She'll never leave me, he continued, his voice carrying that particular brand of arrogance I'd somehow learned to ignore over the past 2 years. She's too invested, too comfortable. Plus, her apartment lease is up next month. She's already talking about putting her furniture in storage. It's perfect timing. The bathroom light clicked off. I closed my eyes fully this time, regulated my breathing into the deep rhythm of sleep. The mattress dipped as he climbed back in, his body radiating the warmth of someone who'd just secured a victory. I waited until his breathing evened out, really evened out this time, before I allowed my eyes to open in the darkness. The ceiling fan rotated slowly above us, its rhythmic whisper the only sound in the room besides Marcus's soft snoring. Too invested, too comfortable. She'll never leave me. The thing is, he wasn't entirely wrong. I had been comfortable. Comfortable enough to ignore the little inconsistencies. The unexplained charges on the credit card I'd foolishly added him to. The weekend work trips that never quite added up. The way his friends smirked at me when they thought I wasn't looking. Comfortable enough to let him move into my loft downtown 6 months ago. To pay for most of our dinners. To float him cash when his startup funding fell through for the 3rd time. But invested? That was where Marcus had miscalculated. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my phone, and walked to the living room of my loft. My name on the deed, my furniture, my life before Marcus had smoothly talked his way into it. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, still glittering with life even at 3 a.m. I'd bought this place 5 years ago when I was 26, fresh off my second successful business exit. While Marcus had been feeding me stories about his entrepreneur dreams and pending investors, I'd been sitting on enough wealth to retire if I wanted to. I opened my laptop and started typing. The first email went to Patricia Chen, my real estate attorney. Subject line: urgent. Need to discuss property access and tenant removal. The second went to my best friend Keisha, who I'd been avoiding for weeks because I couldn't stand the "I told you so" hovering behind her concerned texts. Subject line: you were right. I need help. The third went to Marcus's phone. A test, really. Just a simple, "can't sleep, thinking about you," with a heart emoji. I watched the message deliver, watched the red receipt pop up immediately despite the fact that he was supposedly asleep in my bed. His reply came 30 seconds later. "Go back to sleep, baby. Love you." I set the phone down and laughed. Actually laughed, for the first time in months. It was the kind of laugh that bordered on hysterical, the kind that comes when you realize you've been cast as the fool in a play you didn't know you were performing in. But here's what Marcus didn't know about me. What nobody really knew except Keisha and my accountant. I'd spent the last decade building and selling tech companies. 2 successful exits before I turned 30. The consulting firm I ran now was just something to keep me busy, a way to mentor other founders without the pressure of building another unicorn. I dressed down, drove a 6-year-old Honda, lived quietly. Not because I had to, but because I'd learned that wealth made you a target. Marcus had seen what he wanted to see. A successful but not too successful woman. Independent but not intimidatingly so. Someone who'd be grateful for his attention and willing to bankroll his dreams while he figured out his next move. He'd gotten the surface details right but missed the foundation entirely. By the time dawn broke over the city, I'd made 17 calls, sent 32 emails, and put together a plan that would have made my old business school professors proud. Patricia had already drafted the papers. Keisha was on a plane from Miami. She'd taken the first flight out without me even asking. And I'd scheduled a meeting with a very particular type of consultant who specialized in what she called personal asset protection and strategic life restructuring. Marcus emerged from the bedroom around 9, stretching and yawning, completely oblivious to the tectonic shift happening beneath his feet. He was wearing one of my old concert t-shirts. Radiohead, from a show I'd been to years before I met him. And somehow that felt like the final insult. He'd colonized my space, my clothes, my life, and thought himself clever for it. "Morning, babe," he said, kissing the top of my head as he passed by to raid my fridge. "You're up early. Couldn't sleep?" "Something like that," I replied, watching him pull out the expensive Greek yogurt, the imported jam, the organic berries I'd bought because he insisted regular produce was full of toxins. He assembled his breakfast like a man without a care in the world, like someone who'd just secured his future at 3 a.m. in a bathroom. "So I've been thinking," he said, settling onto the bar stool across from me with his carefully curated breakfast bowl. "About the apartment lease situation. What if we just let it go? I mean, you're practically living here anyway, and it would save you, what, $2,000 a month?" $3,000, I corrected automatically, then caught myself. The apartment he was referring to didn't exist. I'd sold that place years ago and bought this loft. But I'd let him believe I was renting because it fit the narrative of me as someone still building toward success rather than someone who'd already arrived. Right, 3,000. That's crazy money to waste. Plus, he reached across the counter and took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm in that way that used to make me melt. Plus, I've been thinking about what you said about making things official, about us taking the next step. I hadn't said anything about making things official. He'd brought it up during an argument about him using my credit card to buy a custom gaming PC, spinning it as romantic. If we're building a future together, we need to trust each other completely. Is that right? I said, keeping my voice neutral. Yeah, I think we should do it. Maybe not a big wedding. You know I'm not into all that traditional stuff. But we could go to the courthouse, make it legal, merge our lives properly. He squeezed my hand. What do you think? What I thought was that he'd just confirmed every suspicion I'd had. What I thought was that Patricia's warning about common-law marriage and financial entanglement had been prescient. What I thought was that I needed him out of my house before he had any legal claim to anything in it. I think, I said slowly, pulling my hand back, that we should talk about this more seriously. Maybe tonight? His face lit up. Yeah? That's great. That's perfect. I'll make dinner reservations somewhere nice. Wear that blue dress I like. The blue dress he liked. The one I'd worn on our first date. The one he'd complimented endlessly. The one that was sitting in a donation bag in my closet because I couldn't stand the sight of it anymore. Sure. I lied. Sounds perfect. He kissed me on the forehead, patronizing, proprietary, and headed back to the bedroom to shower. I heard the water start, heard him singing off-key to some pop song, heard the sound of a man who thought he'd won. My phone buzzed. Patricia. Papers ready. Locksmith confirmed for 2 p.m. today. Police notified of potential civil matter. They'll have an officer available if needed. You're sure about the timeline? I typed back. Absolutely certain. Execute the plan. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The next message was from Keisha. Landed. Getting a car. Where are you? Home. Come to the back entrance. Key under the blue planter. Then a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Rodriguez, this is Vivian from Clearwater Consulting. I've reviewed your case file. Very interested in taking this on. Can you meet at 11 a.m.? I'll come to you. Vivian Clearwater. The woman Patricia had recommended. The one whose specialty was untangling complicated relationships with surgical precision. Her website was deliberately vague. Personal consulting for high-net-worth individuals in transition. But her reputation in certain circles was crystal clear. She helped people like me extract themselves from people like Marcus without losing their shirts or their sanity in the process. 11 a.m. works. Address is 12 on 47 Morrison Street, Penthouse B. Marcus emerged from the shower 45 minutes later, his hair artfully tousled, wearing clothes I'd bought him for a party last month. I've got to head out for a bit, he announced. Meeting with a potential investor. This could be the big one, babe. There was always a big one. Always a potential investor. A promising deal. A breakthrough just around the corner. In 2 years, none of them had materialized, but the story never changed. Good luck, I said, and I meant it. He was going to need luck, just not the kind he was expecting. He left at 10:15 and Keisha arrived at 10:30, letting herself in with her emergency key. She took one look at me, really looked at me, and pulled me into a hug so fierce it cracked something inside my chest. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry you were right to avoid my calls. I'm sorry I was right. I'm sorry for all of it. Don't be sorry yet, I said, pulling back. Save it for after you hear the plan. I poured us both coffee and laid it out for her. The 3 a.m. phone call, the conversation I'd overheard, the attorney, the locksmith, the consultant, everything. Keisha listened without interrupting, her dark eyes growing wider with each revelation. "Wait," she finally said. "You're doing all this today? Like, today? His name isn't on the deed. He's not on any of my accounts anymore. I removed him last month when I started getting suspicious. He has no legal right to be here. Patricia confirmed it 3 times. The most he can claim is that he's a guest who's overstayed his welcome, and I have every right to secure my property and change my locks. But his stuff will be neatly packed and waiting for him in the building's storage unit. The super is in on it. Marcus tips him exactly nothing, by the way, despite living here rent-free for 6 months. Mr. Hernandez was very happy to help once I explained the situation and slipped him $500 for his trouble." Keisha let out a low whistle. "You've thought of everything." "I've thought of most things. That's why I'm hiring Vivian. She'll think of the rest." The intercom buzzed at exactly 11 a.m. Vivian Clearwater was not what I expected. I'd pictured someone older, severe, intimidating. Instead, a woman in her mid-40s with warm brown skin, kind eyes, and an air of unshakable competence stepped off the elevator. She wore a simple black pantsuit and carried a leather messenger bag that had seen some miles. "Natalie Rodriguez?" she asked, extending her hand. "That's me. This is Keisha Washington, my friend and witness to my sanity." Vivian's smile was slight but genuine. "You'd be surprised how often sanity witnesses are necessary in my line of work. Shall we?" We sat at my dining table, the mid-century modern piece I'd found at an estate sale, refinished myself, the one Marcus had tried to replace with some cheap glass monstrosity from a furniture rental place. Vivian pulled out a tablet and a leather notebook, old school and new school together. "Patricia sent me the basics," she began, "but I need to hear the story from you. Start wherever feels right, and don't leave anything out. The details matter." So I told her. All of it. Meeting Marcus at a friend's gallery opening 2 years ago. How charming he'd been. How attentive. The gradual revelation that his startup was more concept than reality. That his consulting gigs were few and far between. The way he'd slowly integrated himself into my life. First a toothbrush, then a drawer, then half my closet, then his gaming setup in my spare room, then full-time residency that I couldn't remember actually agreeing to. I told her about the credit card I'd added him to, the one he'd maxed out twice before I froze it. The rent he'd promised to split but never quite managed to pay. The elaborate stories about tied-up funds and pending transfers that always seemed to evaporate under scrutiny. "But the weird thing is," I said, realizing it as I spoke, "I never really called him on it. I just absorbed it. Paid for things. Made excuses for him to my friends. To myself." Vivian nodded, making notes. "That's not weird at all. It's textbook. People like Marcus, they're very good at finding the gaps in your boundaries and setting up camp there. They don't smash through walls. They find the doors you've left unlocked and walk right in. Then they change the locks from the inside. Until the actual homeowner changes them back," Keisha added fiercely. "Exactly." Vivian looked up from her notes. "Now, the phone call last night. Tell me everything you remember. Exact phrases, if you can." I recounted it word for word. The 3 a.m. timing, the bathroom conversation, the confidence in his voice when he said I'd never leave, that I was too invested, too comfortable. The comment about my apartment lease being up, information I'd never actually shared with him but that he'd somehow assumed or invented. "And this morning?" Vivian asked. "Marriage." He brought up marriage. Framed it as romantic and spontaneous, but also practical. merging our lives properly. Vivian's expression darkened. He's accelerating. That's not good, or rather, it's very good that you're acting now. My guess? He's either in financial trouble or there's someone else putting pressure on him. Maybe both. The marriage angle is about legal access to your assets. There's definitely someone else, I said quietly. I haven't wanted to look too closely, but there are signs. Weird charges at hotels in the city when he's supposedly at home with me. Perfume that isn't mine. The way he angles his phone away. Do you want me to look closely? Vivian asked. Because I can. I have people who are very good at looking closely. I thought about it. Part of me did want to know, wanted to see the evidence, have the confirmation, understand the full scope of the betrayal. But a larger part of me was simply tired. Tired of investing emotional energy in Marcus and his schemes. Not yet, I decided. Right now, I just want him out. If he contests anything, if he tries to make legal claims, then yes. But if he goes quietly, I'd rather just close the door. Fair enough. Speaking of doors, you have a locksmith coming at 2? I nodded. Good. I'll stay for that. I want to photograph everything. The condition of the apartment, his belongings, the locks before and after. Documentation is your best friend right now. If he tries to claim you damaged his property or locked him out unfairly, you'll have a complete record showing you secured your own home and carefully preserved his possessions. The building has security cameras too, I added. Lobby, elevator, hallways, time-stamped footage. Even better, Patricia chose well when she chose you as a client. You're thinking 3 moves ahead. That's what happens when you build companies, I said. You learn to anticipate problems before they become catastrophes. Keisha snorted. Except when it comes to your love life, apparently. Except then, I agreed. Which is why I'm here now, fixing my mistake. Vivian spent the next hour walking me through what would happen next. The locksmith would change all the locks. Front door, back entrance. The private elevator that opened directly into my loft. Mr. Hernandez would help pack Marcus's belongings into clearly labeled boxes. Nothing damaged, nothing discarded. Complete inventory documented. When Marcus returned, he'd find his key no longer worked, and a security guard waiting with a letter from Patricia's law firm explaining his guest status had been revoked, and his belongings were available for pickup at his convenience from the building's storage unit. He's going to be angry, Vivian warned. Men like Marcus, they don't handle rejection well, especially when they think they've got the upper hand. I can handle angry, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. What I couldn't handle was one more day of pretending I didn't know. The locksmith arrived at 2 p.m. exactly. A woman named Rosa, who Vivian had worked with before. I do a lot of emergency security upgrades, she explained as she examined my locks. Domestic situations, mostly. You'd be surprised how often people need their homes secured quickly and quietly. Or maybe I wouldn't, I said, watching her work. She installed new deadbolts, new strike plates, new cylinders for the elevator control. Everything high security, everything documented, everything designed to make my home actually mine again. While she worked, Keisha and Mr. Hernandez carefully packed Marcus's things. His clothes, his gaming equipment, his collection of sneakers, his supplements and protein powders, his expensive coffee beans. I'd forgotten how much space his stuff had taken up, how thoroughly he'd colonized my home. Look at this, Keisha called from the bathroom. She held up a bottle of cologne, expensive, Designer. Definitely not the drugstore brand Marcus claimed to use. This was hidden way back in the cabinet, behind your cleaning supplies. I took the bottle, sprayed it once. The scent that hit me was familiar. Not because I'd smelled it on Marcus, but because I'd smelled it in my own bed, on my own pillows, during the nights he'd come home late and slipped in beside me without showering. He was wearing that to see someone else, I said slowly, then hiding it and cleaning up before coming home to me. Keisha's face contorted with rage. I will fight him. I know I said I wouldn't, but I will literally fight him. Get in line, Mr. Hernandez muttered, packing the cologne into a box with perhaps more force than necessary. By 5 p.m., it was done. The apartment looked strange without Marcus's clutter. Larger somehow, lighter. More like the space I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. Rosa handed me a new set of keys, Vivian photographed the last of the packed boxes, and Mr. Hernandez wheeled everything down to the storage unit on a cart. What time does he usually get home? Vivian asked. I checked my phone. Marcus had texted around 3. Investor meeting running long. Probably won't be back until 7 or 8. Don't wait up for dinner. I'll grab something with the guys. The guys. The mysterious investor meeting. The elaborate lies that I'd been accepting for 2 years. He says 8, I told Vivian. But based on pattern, probably closer to 9 or 10. Do you want to be here when he arrives? I thought about it. There was something appealing about confronting him, about seeing his face when he realized his key didn't work, about watching the comprehension dawn that he'd miscalculated badly. But there was also something exhausting about it, something that felt like giving him more of my time and energy than he deserved. No, I decided. I don't think I do. I think I want to go to dinner with Keisha. Somewhere nice. Somewhere I've been wanting to try. I think I want to order expensive wine and celebrate the fact that I'm no longer financing my own betrayal. Vivian smiled. Really smiled this time. I think that's exactly what you should do. The security guard has his instructions. Patricia's office is on standby if he makes any legal threats. Your building management knows the situation. You've done everything right, Natalie. Now go enjoy your freedom. We left together, me, Keisha, and Vivian. 3 women walking out into the early evening air like we were walking out of one story and into another. Vivian split off to her car, promising to check in tomorrow, and Keisha and I headed to a restaurant I'd been reading about for months, but had never suggested to Marcus because he always wrinkled his nose at places he deemed too trendy. We got a table by the window, ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than Marcus's promised monthly rent contribution, and raised our glasses. To changing the locks, Keisha said. To changing the locks, I echoed. My phone buzzed around 9:30 p.m. Then again. Then 3 more times in rapid succession. I glanced at the screen and saw Marcus's name lighting up with increasingly urgent messages. What the hell? Did you change the locks? Are you serious right now? This is crazy. Call me immediately. You can't just lock me out of my own home. His own home. The entitlement in those words took my breath away. I showed the messages to Keisha, who read them and shook her head. The audacity. The sheer, unmitigated audacity. Should I respond? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Girl, no. Let him talk to Patricia's office. Let him talk to the security guard. Let him talk to the 4 walls of whatever hotel he inevitably ends up in tonight. But don't you give him 1 more second of your time. She was right. She was absolutely right. But still, my thumb hovered over the screen, years of conditioning making me want to explain, to justify, to smooth things over. Then another message came through. But this one wasn't from Marcus. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, is this Natalie? I think we need to talk. Marcus has been dating both of us. My name is Simone." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I started to laugh. Really laugh. The kind of cathartic release that comes from the universe confirming you made exactly the right decision at exactly the right time. "What?" Keisha demanded. "What is it?" I passed her my phone, watched her eyes go wide, then watched her start laughing too. "Oh, this is good," she gasped between giggles. "This is really, really good." I composed a response to Simone. "Hi. Yes, I think we definitely need to talk. Are you free tomorrow for coffee?" Her reply was immediate. "Please, 10 a.m. I know a place." I confirmed, then silenced my phone as more messages from Marcus rolled in, each one more desperate and angry than the last. But I was done reading them. Done engaging, done with all of it. The waiter came by with dessert menus, and I ordered the most decadent thing on the list. Some elaborate chocolate construction that probably cost as much as a week of groceries. Because I could. Because I wanted to. Because for the first time in 2 years, I was making choices based solely on what I wanted, not on what would keep the peace, or make Marcus happy, or maintain the comfortable fiction we'd been living. Outside the restaurant windows, the city glittered in the darkness. My city, the one I'd conquered and claimed long before Marcus had wandered into my gallery opening with his practiced charm and empty promises. I'd built a life here, built multiple businesses, built a future. And I'd let one smooth-talking man make me forget all of that, make me doubt my own worth and agency. But not anymore. "To new beginnings?" I said, raising my glass again. "To new beginnings," Keisha agreed, "and to never, ever ignoring red flags again." "I'll drink to that." My phone continued to buzz throughout dinner. Marcus, then some of his friends, then numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. Whatever storm was breaking right now in the world Marcus inhabited, I was no longer in it. I'd changed the locks not just on my apartment, but on that entire chapter of my life. And tomorrow, I would start writing the next one. The coffee shop Simone had chosen was in a neighborhood I rarely visited. Upscale but not ostentatious. The kind of place where business deals happened over lattes and pastries. I arrived 10 minutes early and spotted her immediately. She sat by the window, nervously twisting a napkin between her fingers, her eyes scanning every person who walked through the door. She was beautiful. That was the first thing I noticed. Tall, athletic build, natural hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, wearing scrubs with a hospital badge clipped to her pocket. A nurse, maybe, or a doctor. Someone with a real career, real responsibilities, real value that Marcus had exploited just like he'd exploited mine. Our eyes met, and I saw the recognition flash across her face, probably from my social media, from the photos Marcus had never quite bothered to hide completely. I walked over, and we stared at each other for a moment before she stood and, surprisingly, pulled me into a brief hug. "I'm so sorry," she said immediately. "I had no idea you existed until yesterday." I knew he'd had a girlfriend before, but he said you two broke up 6 months ago. He said he was living with a roommate while looking for his own place. I sat down, ordered a coffee from the hovering waiter, and studied her face. There was genuine distress there, genuine mortification. She was a victim too, just in a different way. "How long?" I asked quietly. 8 months. We met at the hospital where I work. He came in with his friend who had broken his arm, and we just clicked. Or I thought we did. She laughed bitterly. He told me he was an entrepreneur, that he was between major projects but had something big in the works. He was so charming, so attentive. We'd have these amazing dates, and he'd talk about our future together, about traveling the world once his business took off. Let me guess, I said, but money was always a little tight right now, just temporarily. Once the investors came through, once the deal closed, once the transfer went through, he borrowed $12,000 from me. Simone's voice cracked. For his startup costs. He said he'd pay me back within a month. That was 5 months ago. I closed my eyes. 12,000 from her. Countless thousands from me. Probably more from others we didn't even know about yet. Marcus wasn't just a bad boyfriend. He was running a systematic con. How did you find out about me? I asked. His phone. He left it at my place yesterday, went out to get food, and it kept buzzing. I wasn't trying to snoop, but there were so many messages coming in. From you, from his friends, from numbers I didn't recognize. And then I saw the texts about meeting at your place, about dinner plans, about picking up his stuff from storage. I realized he was living somewhere else entirely, not with a roommate, but with you. She wiped her eyes. I called him on it when he got back. He tried to lie at first, then admitted it, but said you were crazy, that you'd become obsessed with him, and he was trying to get away from you safely. Of course he had. Classic narcissist playbook. Make the victim the villain. I'm not crazy, I said simply. I'm just done. And based on what you're telling me, you should be done too. I am. I blocked him on everything last night. But Natalie... She leaned forward, her voice urgent. There are others. When I was going through his phone, I saw messages from at least 2 other women. Similar patterns. Investment talk, future plans, borrowed money. He's been doing this to multiple people. The waiter brought my coffee, and I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, letting the information settle. Marcus wasn't just a lazy boyfriend living off his girlfriend. He was operating a romance con, targeting successful women and bleeding them dry while maintaining multiple relationships simultaneously. I want to stop him, Simone said fiercely. I want to make sure he can't do this to anyone else. But I don't know how. I thought about Vivian, about Patricia, about the resources I had at my disposal that Simone probably didn't. I thought about the other women Marcus was currently manipulating, the ones who didn't know yet that they were funding his lifestyle while he promised them futures he had no intention of delivering. I might know how, I said slowly, but it's going to require us working together. Are you in? Absolutely. I pulled out my phone and texted Vivian. Situation bigger than expected. Need to meet ASAP, bringing someone with me. Her response came within seconds. My office, 1 hour. Simone and I spent the next 45 minutes comparing notes. The picture that emerged was damning. Marcus had a rotation, Monday and Tuesday nights with Simone, Wednesday and Thursday nights with me. Friday through Sunday split between at least 2 other women based on what Simone had seen in his messages. He'd crafted elaborate stories for each of us, maintaining separate narratives that somehow never quite intersected despite us all living in the same city. The investor meetings, I said suddenly, the work trips, the friend emergencies, they were all just calendar management. He was keeping us separated. And isolated, Simone added. He always discouraged me from talking to his friends, said they were going through rough patches and needed space. I thought I was being respectful of his boundaries. Same. And whenever I suggested meeting his family or going to his old neighborhood, there was always a reason why not. His parents were difficult. His hometown had bad memories. I thought I was being understanding. We were both silent for a moment, processing the scope of the deception. I feel so stupid, Simone finally said. Don't. He's good at this. Probably been doing it for years, refining his approach with each new target. We're not stupid. We're compassionate, successful women who thought we were building relationships with someone real. The stupidity is all his, for thinking he could keep this up forever. Vivian's office was in a sleek downtown building, all glass and steel and discretion. She met us in the lobby personally, took one look at both of us, and said, "This is going to be interesting." In her conference room, Simone and I laid it all out. The timeline, the money, the multiple women, the systematic deception. Vivian took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions, her expression growing more intense with each revelation. "This goes beyond civil recovery," she said finally. "What you're describing is wire fraud. Potentially identity theft if he used any of your information for credit applications. Definitely theft by deception in most jurisdictions. This is criminal." "Can we prosecute?" I asked. "You can file police reports. Whether they'll pursue it depends on the amounts involved, the evidence, and frankly, how busy the district attorney's office is. But here's what I think you should do first. Find the other women. Document everything. Build an airtight case. Then, take it to the police with a complete package they can't ignore." "How do we find the others?" Simone asked. Vivian smiled, the predatory kind. "I have a very good investigator. Give me 24 hours. We left Vivian's office with a plan. Simone would compile all her financial records, all the texts and emails she'd saved, everything that documented her relationship with Marcus and his borrowing. I would do the same, and we'd wait for Vivian's investigator to track down the other women in Marcus's rotation. I didn't have to wait long for Marcus to escalate. By that evening, he'd progressed from desperate texts to showing up at my building. Mr. Hernandez called me to warn me. "He's in the lobby," the super said. "Very upset, demanding to be let up. The security guard is handling it, but I thought you should know." "Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Let security do their job. If he doesn't leave within 15 minutes, call the police." "Already planning to. And Ms. Rodriguez, I'm glad you got out. I've seen too many good people stay too long with bad ones." I watched from my window as, 20 minutes later, a police cruiser pulled up outside. 2 officers escorted Marcus away from the building. He was gesturing wildly, clearly trying to explain his side, but they were unmoved. After a brief conversation, they sent him on his way with what I assumed was a warning about trespassing. My phone rang immediately after. Marcus, of course. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail that I listened to on speaker with Keisha, who'd come over to keep me company through what we both knew would be a difficult night. "Natalie, this is insane. You can't just throw me out like trash. I have rights. We've been living together for months. I'm coming back tomorrow with a lawyer, and you're going to regret this. You're going to regret treating me like this after everything I've done for you, after all the time I invested in us. Call me back. We need to talk like adults." Everything he'd done for me. The time he'd invested. The sheer audacity of it made Keisha throw a pillow at the phone. "I invested time," she shouted at it. "I invested money. I invested my home and my trust and my life. He invested lies and manipulation and theft." "Preach," I muttered, deleting the voicemail. The next morning, Vivian called. My investigator found them, 3 other women, all professional, all successful, all being actively conned by Marcus Chambers. or Marcus Chen or Mark Chandler, depending on which woman you ask. He's using different names? Variations. Enough to make it harder to Google him, to cross-reference. Smart, in a sociopathic way. I'm sending you their contact information. They've all agreed to talk. I suggest you set up a group meeting. There's power in numbers, and they deserve to know they're not alone. The meeting happened 2 days later, in a private room at a restaurant Keisha helped me book. 5 women, all sitting around a table, all looking at each other with a mixture of recognition and horror. There was Simone, who I already knew. Then Jessica, a real estate developer who'd been seeing Marcus for 6 months and had lent him $8,000 for legal fees on his startup. Priya, a software engineer who'd been with him for 4 months and had paid for 2 business trips that she now realized had been dates with other women. And Amanda, a marketing executive who'd been seeing him the longest, nearly a year, and who'd co-signed a car lease for him that she was still paying off. "I can't believe this," Amanda kept saying. "I can't believe I fell for this. I'm a smart woman. I've built a career, bought a house, managed million-dollar campaigns. How did I not see this?" "Because he's a professional," Vivian said. She joined us for the meeting, bringing boxes of documented evidence her investigator had compiled. Marcus Chambers, and yes, that's his real name, has been doing this for at least 5 years, probably longer. He targets high-achieving women, studies their vulnerabilities, mirrors their values and goals, then slowly extracts resources while maintaining just enough emotional connection to keep you invested. It's not about intelligence. It's about exploitation. She opened her laptop and projected onto the screen we'd requested. There, in painful detail, was Marcus's pattern, the dating apps he frequented, the profiles he maintained, the systematic approach he used to identify and cultivate marks. Screenshots of conversations where he'd literally copy-pasted the same romantic messages to different women, just changing the names. "Oh my God," Priya whispered. "The thing he said about destiny and fate. He said that exact same thing to all of us." We'd all heard it. His signature line about how he'd been waiting his whole life to meet someone who truly understood him, who matched his ambition and dreams. Word for word, delivered to 5 different women with the same practiced sincerity. "So what do we do?" Jessica asked. "I want my money back, but more than that, I want him stopped. I want to make sure he can't do this to anyone else." "We have options," Vivian said. "Criminal charges for fraud and theft by deception, civil suits for recovery of funds, restraining orders. We can also contact the platforms he uses and document his behavior, get him banned. But the most effective thing? We pool our evidence, file a comprehensive police report, and make enough noise that the district attorney's office can't ignore it." "I'm in," I said immediately. "Me too," said Simone. One by one, the others agreed. 5 women, 5 sets of evidence, over $40,000 in documented theft, and a clear pattern of systematic fraud. It was, as Vivian said, the kind of case that prosecutors actually liked. Clean, documented, with cooperative witnesses who weren't going to back down. We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. Bank records, texts, emails, photos, receipts, all of it. Vivian's assistant compiled it into a master file, organized chronologically and by victim. The picture it painted was devastating and damning. "He's done," Vivian said with satisfaction. "Even if the DA doesn't pursue criminal charges, and I think they will, the civil case is ironclad. You'll get judgments against him, And while collecting might be hard given that he has no legitimate assets, at least you'll have legal paper trails that will follow him for years. What about warning other women? Amanda asked. I keep thinking about the next person he'll target once he realizes we're all done with him. That's trickier, Vivian admitted. You can't defame him, even if everything you say is true. But you can share your experiences in public forums, write reviews on dating safety sites, even create a private social media group for comparing notes if other women come forward. Just stick to facts, keep emotions out of it, and document everything. We left the restaurant as a united front. 5 women who'd been isolated and manipulated, now connected and empowered. We exchanged phone numbers, created a group chat, made plans to meet again. What Marcus had meant as divisions had become our strength. The police took our report seriously. The detective assigned to the case, a woman named Sandra Morrison, listened to our stories with professional compassion and growing anger. I see cases like this more often than you'd think, she said. Romance fraud is epidemic, but it's often underreported because victims feel ashamed. The fact that you've all come forward together with this level of documentation, that's rare. That's powerful. I'm going to push for charges. And she did. Within a week, Marcus was arrested on multiple counts of theft by deception and fraud. His bail was set at $50,000, money he didn't have, because everything he'd had came from us. He sat in jail for 3 days before his mother finally bailed him out, and according to Detective Morrison, that phone call had been enlightening. His family had no idea, she told me. They thought he was running a legitimate consulting business. When his mother realized what he'd actually been doing, she paid the bail but told him he was on his own for legal fees. He's hired a public defender. The court case took months to wind through the system, but in the end, Marcus pleaded guilty to avoid trial. He was sentenced to 18 months in county jail, 5 years probation, and ordered to pay restitution to all 5 of us. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense, delivered a scathing rebuke from the bench. Mr. Chambers, you have systematically exploited the trust and affection of multiple women for your own financial gain. You have shown no remorse, no insight, and no indication that you understand the harm you've caused. These women are not just out money, though that's significant. They're out time, emotional energy, and trust in future relationships. I hope you use your incarceration to reflect on your choices and emerge as a better person, though I'm not optimistic. I attended the sentencing with Simone, Jessica, and Amanda. Priya had moved to Seattle for a new job and watched via video link. We sat in the gallery, a row of women who'd reclaimed our stories and our power, and watched Marcus Chambers be led away in handcuffs. It should have felt more triumphant. In movies, in stories, this is the moment where the music swells and justice feels complete. But real life is messier. I felt relief, certainly. Satisfaction? Yes. But also just tired. Tired of carrying the weight of his deception, tired of the legal processes, tired of being defined by this chapter of my life. You okay? Simone asked as we left the courthouse. I will be, I said. I think I already am, actually. I changed the locks, remember? Everything else was just closing the door completely. We went to lunch, the 4 of us, and talked about everything except Marcus. Jessica was closing a major development deal. Amanda had been promoted to VP of her company. Simone was finishing her certification to become a nurse practitioner. And I was in the process of launching a new venture, a consulting firm specifically focused on helping women in tech avoid predatory investors and partners, both business and personal. Turn trauma into purpose, Keisha had said when I told her about the idea, and she was right. What Marcus had done to me, to all of us, had revealed a gap in resources and support for successful women navigating the intersection of relationships and finance. I could fill that gap. 6 months after the sentencing, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, I think I'm dating Marcus Chambers." Someone sent me a link to an article about the court case. Is this the same person? I need to know what I'm dealing with. I called her immediately, told her everything, sent her the court documents, the news articles, the compiled evidence. She thanked me, said she was getting out immediately, and asked if she could join our group chat. We added her as member number 7. 2 more women had found us through the court records and shared their own Marcus stories. He violated his probation, Detective Morrison told me a month later. Contact with women he met on dating apps, which was specifically prohibited. He's going back to jail to serve out his full sentence. Good, I thought. Let him sit there and think about his choices. The anniversary of the night I'd changed the locks rolled around on a Tuesday. I spent it alone in my loft, truly alone, not lonely alone, but peacefully alone. The space felt entirely mine again. I'd redecorated, gotten rid of every piece of furniture Marcus had touched, brought in new art, new colors, new energy. Keisha called around 9. "How are you doing?" "Really good," I said, surprised by how much I meant it. Really, genuinely good. "No regrets?" "Only that I didn't trust my gut sooner. But that's a learning, not a regret." "Proud of you, girl. You took a nightmare and turned it into power." After we hung up, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not an article, not a business plan, but a personal essay about what I'd learned. About the difference between being too comfortable and being genuinely happy. About the red flags we ignore because we want to believe the best in people. About the strength it takes to admit you made a mistake and correct it, no matter how much time and emotion you've invested. I titled it, "I Changed the Locks," and published it on Medium. Within a day, it had 10,000 views. Within a week, 50,000. Women started commenting, sharing their own stories of extraction, of reclamation, of the moment they decided enough was enough. Some of the messages were heartbreaking. Women still trapped in situations like mine, afraid to leave, unsure how to start. I answered every single one, connected them with resources, sometimes with Vivian or Detective Morrison if legal help was needed. The essay became a movement, became a community. A year to the day after I changed my locks, I hosted a dinner at my loft. Keisha, Simone, Jessica, Amanda, Priya via video call, and 3 new women who'd found me through the article. We raised glasses of expensive wine and toasted to survival, to recovery, to the absolute audacity of rebuilding your life exactly how you want it. "To changing the locks," I said. "To changing the locks," they echoed. And then, because we were more than our trauma, more than our shared experience with one manipulative man, we talked about everything else. Our jobs, our dreams, our futures. We talked about the trips we wanted to take, the businesses we wanted to build, the lives we were actively creating. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. My heart jumped. Old trauma, old fear, until I read it. "Ms. Rodriguez, this is Parole Officer Williams. Just wanted to inform you that Marcus Chambers was released this morning after serving his full sentence. He's been given strict parameters for his probation, and has been instructed to have no contact with you or the other women involved in his case. If he violates this, call me immediately." I showed the message to the table. There was a moment of tension, of the old fear trying to reassert itself. Then Jessica laughed. "He's out there somewhere, broke and on probation. Meanwhile, we're here, successful and free, and eating dinner in a penthouse loft. I think we won." "We definitely won," Simone agreed. "He took our money, but we took our lives back. That's not even a fair trade. We got the much better deal." She was right. Marcus Chambers had stolen time and money and trust from 5, now 7, women. But in doing so, he'd inadvertently created a network of powerful, resilient women who now looked out for each other, who shared resources and support, who'd turned victimhood into advocacy. I'd changed the locks on my apartment. But more than that, I'd changed the locks on my life, on who I let in, what I accepted, what I tolerated. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to value my peace over comfort, to recognize that being alone is infinitely better than being with someone who diminishes you. The evening wound down around midnight. As I said goodbye to each woman, hugged them tight, promised to see them again soon, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete. Not because I'd found the right partner or achieved some external measure of success, but because I'd found myself again. The version of me who'd built companies and bought penthouses and dreamed big dreams. She'd been there all along, just temporarily obscured by Marcus's manipulation. After everyone left, I stood at my floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city that had always been mine. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably crafting his next story, identifying his next target, believing he could rebuild his con. But somewhere out there were also women who'd read my article, who'd joined our community, who knew what to look for, and would recognize the signs. Somewhere out there, Detective Morrison was monitoring his probation. Vivian was helping other women extract themselves from similar situations, and a network of survivors was actively protecting each other. I picked up my phone and added one final update to the group chat. "He's out. We're still here. We're still winning." The responses came flooding in: heart emojis, power fist emojis, messages of solidarity and strength. 7 women, connected by one man's cruelty, united by our own resilience. I changed the locks that Tuesday night, but the real change happened in the year that followed. I changed how I saw myself, how I valued my own instincts, how I defined success and happiness. I changed from someone who accepted disrespect in the name of love to someone who recognized that real love never asks you to diminish yourself. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all. Not the court case or the restitution, or even the satisfaction of watching him face consequences. The best revenge was becoming the fullest, truest, most powerful version of myself. The version who never again ignored red flags, who never again prioritized comfort over truth, who never again let anyone make her doubt her own worth. I locked Marcus out of my apartment that day, but more importantly, I locked out the version of myself who'd been willing to accept so little while giving so much. The locks are changed, the door is closed, and I am finally, completely, triumphantly free. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.